Welcome to Under Attack, where we talk about men's issues and the topics that affect men in today's society. We have Rocco, Baby Blueberry Bitch, and myself, Texas Desert Sailor. Um, Welcome to Under Attack.
Today, our topic today is selective services and what the new news this year about automating it. Lawmakers are trying to push to automate it for men, and it looks like women might also be required to now enter the draft. It all depends on what passes, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Say hi, Blue.
Hi, Blue.
So the draft. That's our topic for today. As most people, the draft and selective services. Short history of it. Men have, in this country, in America at least, have been required to enter the draft or enter into the selective services. I think there was only a 2 or 3 year period back in the early 80s during the Carter administration where selective services was not required. But other
70s.
or 70s, excuse me. I wasn't born yet, so pardon me.
Damn, I feel old. Fuck, I was.
Yeah, I know you were. And late 70s then, a couple years there. But other than those 2 years, men are required to enter with either the draft or what the selective services is now. And but women have never been forced to do that. Men have always been in this country forced to be cannon fodder for war, and that's something that we need to talk about. Because some countries have forced conscription, some states have none, some require both men and women to do it, and some just require men to do it. So we're one of the countries where we only require men, but we do allow women into the military in all roles since 2016 now. So it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of opinions, even in the men's rights avenue of it. A lot of us want women to be drafted or to either completely get rid of the draft and the selective services. So some want to keep it, some want to get rid of it completely. But Texas, what is your overall opinion about selective services?
So, selective service was formed. I don't remember if it was World War I. I believe it was actually World War II. We were not ready to enter the war, and we did. I think our standing army at the time, our military forces were a total of like 300,000. It was nowhere near what we needed to go and enter into a war for World War II in the late 30s when it started in Europe. So they instituted selective service, and it's not the draft is not actually its own thing. The draft is the act of conscripting males that are registered with selective service. They initiated selective service to have a pool of men available to draw on in the times when America needs to rapidly deploy or populate or raise a military because they don't have enough military to fight a conflict. And that doctrine was started, I believe it was started probably in the 40s. I have to go back and look, but that was the purpose of selective service. We don't have a large standing army, or it wasn't large enough. There's a conflict. We need more people. We need more bodies. So they pull selective service up, which is just basically a big list of all the eligible males. And then the draft is a lottery system that pulls from that list. And the draft has been used in the past. It gained disfavor in Vietnam. Vietnam was a bad conflict that American public did not support, and people were burning draft cards. Men were fleeing to Canada or overseas, so they couldn't, be selected and forced to show up. And it got so bad that there was a 3 year period in the 70s during the Carter administration that they actually abolished it. They discontinued selective service. You didn't have to register for those 3 year period. I believe it was 76 to 79. In 1980, selective service was reinstituted under Ronald Reagan, and um, there was a you are correct. Women can voluntarily join the military, but they're not forced to register for selective service. Where if we needed to raise military forces, we could pull them up for service without their consent. Um, and since Vietnam, this is one of the things. This is why people don't truly understand the draft nowadays. We have not used the draft in a conflict since Vietnam. Every conflict we've had in America since Vietnam, we've been able to maintain a large enough peacetime uh, military force that we have. It's an all volunteer force. We've had an all volunteer force since the 80s for Gulf War One, for Gulf War Two, for the Slovakian Czech War, for every conflict we've had. We've always had enough forces to maintain our doctrine because we've had a very patriotic country, and we've had a lot of men that have volunteered, and women that have volunteered, both men and women, to fill those roles. So we haven't needed to utilize selective service. The problem is after Afghanistan, recruitment goals have not been met. The last several years, we have not met our goals um, in any of the branches. I think there was one branch that I think met their goal one year in like the last 3 or 4 years. So and especially with the COVID-19, they actually got rid of active duty forces that refused to take the COVID-19 vaccination, further lowering U.S. forces by manually pushing them out, giving them admin steps or something like that, getting them out of the military. And that even further degraded our ability to maintain our position on our recruitment goals and our manning power. So now we are undermanned. Recruiting is at an all-time low. Men and women are not joining up in the military. They're not able to meet the attrition rate for people retiring or leaving service. And now the draft is a hot topic. Now, back in 1981, the Supreme Court did rule on selective service and women being required to register for selective service for the draft. And the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in 1981 in Rosker versus Goldberg that the only reason that women are not required to register for selective service is because all combat jobs or roles are not open to them. That was the sole reason that the Supreme Court said, you know what? No, women don't have to register because of this one reason. That's it. That was the whole reason. Fast forward into 2013. 2013, the Department of Defense removed that, opened up all roles to them. But here's the key thing. But even though they opened the roles, they did not, or I'm sorry, I got to rephrase that. They opened combat roles to women, some combat roles. That's the key. In 2013, the Department of Defense did open up some combat roles to females, and they did serve in combat roles. They did not open up every combat role, every military occupation specialty, MOS. They did not open up every job for females. That occurred in 2016. In 2016, every combat role, every combat job, every military occupation specialty, every job in the military was open to females to serve in, and they could serve in. That was when the one thing back in 81 in Rosker versus Goldberg, the one thing that the Supreme Court said had to happen for women to be mandatorily put on selective service was finally removed.
Right. So,
So starting in, go ahead, I'll let you go ahead there.
yeah. So I want to kind of go back a little bit because we see when we're talking about recruitment levels, and that's why I think there's a huge push. So, push for getting people in the selective services because it was always up to men to sign up for selective services. They had to, and there was a lot of ways they made it somewhat easier. Is pretty much any time you try to get a driver's license, you'd have to, if you weren't signed up for selective services, they'd make you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then filling
Mm-hmm.
out now up until 2 years ago, apparently, according to this article we're about to look at real quick. If you fill out a FAFSA form, like if you're going to college and you're filling out a FAFSA form, that was automatic. There was a section only for men, and that was to sign up for the selective services because
Mm-hmm.
You can't get a federal loan unless you sign up as a man.
Selective service.
Yeah, unless you sign up for selective service. You couldn't get it. You can't get any type of government loan until you do that
Correct.
as a man. Now, women didn't have to do that. So, but we'll take a look real quick at this.
So currently, 46 of the states have made it to where when you register for your driver's license, when you get your driver's license, you're automatically enrolled in selective service. In 46 of our states, that's law.
Right. So,
So we're almost mandatorily because who's not going to get a license? We're almost mandatorily there already.
right. But there's a huge amount of urban males who simply just aren't automatically signed up because either they're not going to college and they're not getting driver's licenses, so they're not automatically signing up, and they're just don't know that they have to sign up, and so that's part of the push of why they're doing this. But I also think it's because they're not hitting recruitment levels and they want, or they're preparing for something,
Hmm.
and it's doesn't sound good. So uh, a new plan from House lawmakers would automatically register men for a potential military draft when they hit age 18, avoiding potential legal consequences connected to failing to file the paperwork at the proper time. And those punishments is like a $250,000 fine, 5 years in prison. It's a felony, and
It's a felony.
which means in some states you can no longer vote. So you, men will end up losing the right to vote depending on what state they're in.
Correct.
So this system hasn't been used for this purpose for 52 years, like we just talked about. But the number of individuals who have skipped registering has increased in recent years, in large part because registration options were removed from the federal student loan process 2 years ago, which I didn't know about it until I read this article.
Mhm.
And that had accounted for nearly a quarter of all registrations. So I don't know why they would do that. Like, well, why get rid of it? It's kind of weird. But I do think it's funny that a woman is sponsoring this bill, forcing men, you know, my body, my choice. But we'll use men as cannon fodder for war. We'll just make it automatic, so they don't forget to register. Find that kind of
Hmm.
funny, but that's just me.
Yeah. So
But
there are men's groups fighting to get women to have to mandatorily register with selective service also. They about 2 years ago, 2021, 2022, they tried pushing it up to SCOTUS and it got kicked back because they didn't go through Congress first.
right, the
Um,
the Supreme Court wanted the wanted said this is Congress needs to handle this first before it comes here. But I do want to get Blue's opinion. Obviously, Blue's Australian. What is the do you know if men are forced to register or anything like that? Actually,
No, I have no idea.
gotcha. What do you think about men being forced to enter a draft and not women?
I don't think anybody should be forced to,
Got
like, especially with how the world is today. I wouldn't want to fucking fight for it.
yeah.
Like, that's just me though.
I think the only reason we should have a draft, and this goes into war theory more or less. I wouldn't really want to draft unless our homeland is being attacked. You
Mm.
know, you know,
Yeah,
and Australia and United States kind of have a unique. We're kind of there's big seas. It's not like we have huge borders where troops can move in. They have to come overseas. Australia's a big island. That's kind of what saved America during World War II, other than the bombings of Hawaii and stuff. So we're kind of in a unique position to have that opinion, if you want to have that
I
opinion.
I don't think that only one gender should be forced to be drafted though. Like, especially again, like in today's society, women love to scream that they can do whatever a man can do, but they don't seem to actually do it. So,
Right. So, to go back, so now to go back to the automatic registration, the selective service system costs roughly $30 million a year, and that's another reason they want to make it automated because it would save them a lot of money and pretty much get rid of the whole agency altogether. So, um, but
Well, it
yeah,
wouldn't get rid of the agents. It wouldn't get rid of the agency altogether because if we did need a draft, that's the agency that's going to do the lottery and pull them in and notify them and things like that. It would reduce it significantly, but it wouldn't. It wouldn't eliminate it.
right. Well, they said that lawmakers have proposed a number of reforms to the database in recent years, including adding women and completely eliminating the agency altogether, according to this article, but none have made it through Congress yet, and that's kind of what we're talking about because
Women
um,
don't have to register.
yeah, should Congress weighs the question yet again? Congress is debating it currently, so kind of like what we said, women very may well be drafted. This is a continuing thing though. Like Congress talks about it, sometimes even enters the bill, but then once it gets voted on, it usually gets taken out, and then we just wait next year, and then nothing happens about it. So um, it'll be interesting what happens this year because I think like I said, I think they know something is coming down the pipeline. I think they know there's going to be conflict, and with our recruitment levels being completely depleted almost, um, and you know, talks and rumors of World War, Civil War, all this other stuff. I definitely think they're gearing up for something, and I think this may be it for women being also forced to be in selective services. So, um, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see that. Um, yeah. Um, so, Tex,
Hmm.
what is your opinion about women having to enter the draft? Do you think Congress should pass this?
We really need to say selective service
Oh,
because the
sorry.
draft is the act. Yeah, the draft
Right.
is the act of using the selective service.
Yeah. You're.
People think it's just the draft and they don't really understand it's two different things. Yeah, I think women should mandatorily register for selective service just as men do.
Yeah.
They fought for literally several hundred years for equal rights, but this is one right that's not equal.
Yeah.
This is one of the privileges women have. This is a right that women have, that to not have to go to war to die, men have to. You push so hard for equality and everything else. You need to be, if you're going to be equal, you're going to be fucking equal.
Right.
You're going to have to register for selective service also, and then you're going to get assigned the combat roles just like men do.
Yeah.
It needs to be equal across the board. You get to be the bricklayers, you get to be the plumbers, you get to be the all the jobs you don't want to do in the civilian world. Guess what? When it comes to the military, they don't care because there's only going to be so many support roles, and women are going to have to pick up a rifle and fight too.
Um, my thing is, I don't know how many women can actually, and I'm not. This isn't. I'm not saying women. I mean, men are just stronger. The vast majority of women, and probably a vast majority of men, probably couldn't even get the fitness standards. I know I couldn't at this time. I'm a big fat slob, so like I can't. I couldn't go through an army course, and uh, but I feel like when it comes to the draft, there are going to be so many women who can't even qualify to even enter to serve, and they would have to go to more supporting roles that aren't. I mean, they might have to work on a military base as a civilian. They can force civilian jobs on them, like working at a base or something like that.
See,
So
this is the problem you're going to have if you start doing that. You're starting to create separate but equal. You're going to have men saying, "Why do they not have to risk their lives and I still have to risk mine? We get paid the same. We sign the same dotted line." You're going to alienate your
but
men that are
but
fighting.
but if they can't pass the physical standards to enter into a combat role, we shouldn't. My fear is, in order to reach or make women to get into those combat roles, will they lower the physical standard so more women can
They
get in?
are they are, they already do. They always
Right,
have.
exactly. But it's gonna
And,
get
and let me blow your mind a little more. when we get into an era where there's conflict, even the men's standards are lowered. The in peacetime, the Marines and the Air Force and the Navy and the Army, they have higher standards for men. But the minute a conflict breaks out, even the men's standards are lowered so they can get more bodies through boot camp. That's a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So so when we're in a wartime footing, they don't fucking care that you can do 300 or 200 push-ups or 50 push-ups in 2 minutes. They don't care. We need someone to go stand that post, stand that watch, stand in that boiler room, fix this, do that, fight, pick up the gun, go move the ammunition. They need bodies.
Yeah.
The military doesn't care, and I was in the military. I did 8 years. I was in Gulf War One. I was also for a short time technically in Gulf War Two. I got my National Defense Service medal with a star. Um, the military does not care about you. You are literally a piece of equipment to them.
Right.
They'll say all this nice stuff to make it seem like they care, but when it comes down to the end of the day, they care about the fucking mission. So they're going to lower the standards for both men and women if war breaks out. They're just going to lower the standards for both to get more bodies in there to throw bodies at the meat grinder.
Do you think that I mean, I'm not in the military, and this might be even above your pay grade, but is that effective? Is that because if you have a less qualified force, it's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not it's usually not good. You could actually have someone like just throwing bodies at it sometimes doesn't work because now there are people that are a liability that actually
I
now
see what you're
putting people in danger because they can't
so.
they can't carry their wounded man
Mhm.
undercover because she's 110 pounds and can't carry anybody, you know.
So the, the number of bodies we've had to throw at a conflict in today's conflicts compared to World War II is significantly less. I think I don't know the exact number, but I think all of the fatalities in Afghanistan was 3,500. I think it was like what 11 million in World War II.
Right,
It's
yeah.
pennies. It's penny. We don't win by war of attrition anymore. So that argument really doesn't make sense because we have so much technological support. We have drones, we have missiles, we have A10 Warthogs, we have other support mechanisms to where we don't have to fight that war of attrition like we did back in the 40s. But is it still a war of attrition at the end of the day? It absolutely is. And if you throw enough bodies at something, you win.
Right. Well, I mean, just look what's happening over in Russia and Ukraine, though. That's mostly bodies going back and forth over the border.
It's a war of attrition. And at some point, I'm sorry to say, but Russia has more bodies than Ukraine. At some point, if unless other nations start supporting it, at some point Ukraine runs out of bodies.
Right. And Russians love to use a lot of bodies in war. They had the highest casualty rate in World War II by far. Like it wasn't even close.
And I'm not doing a moralistic debate here. I'm just that's the fact.
No,
That's just
yeah,
how it works.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's great. I'm nervous for my boys because like they're young. If we ever to if there's a conflict that starts in a couple years, um, they'll be
Your son, I think your sons are going to be young enough right now that they won't make that conflict. My son is absolutely in that conflict.
right. Well, I mean, look how long Afghanistan was. We were there for 20 years. So, I mean, if there's a world conflict, and I mean, it'd be hard to be that like for a whole world conflict and keep
Mm-hmm.
consistent for 20 years. But you never know. It could, we're always on this line of tension. So maybe someone comes in. Maybe there's things that happen in the world that pauses it for another 5 years. And if
Mm-hmm.
if it's just paused for 5 years and it starts back up again and then it starts, then my kids are right in there. You
Yeah.
know.
But this is what men have to worry about for their sons, but men don't have to worry about it for their daughters. But you know what? And this is just something that kind of occurred to me. If men did have to worry about it for their daughters, if women had to worry about it for their daughters, maybe they would start paying more attention to the politics that are taking place in the capital.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think people would be really wanting to support Ukraine anymore because pretty soon it's like, okay, we can start sending bodies over there. We're going to send your daughters and sons over there, and then like, oh no,
You know,
no,
people
no.
this goes back kind of to the issue of male disposability. Men have always been viewed as disposable. We are cannon fodder. We're expected to produce for society. We're expected to provide for society. We're expected to die for society. And men accept this, and men are okay with this. But the minute you have to start putting women into it, put women into a war zone, women start dying, that's when mothers and fathers and people back home are going to start paying attention, saying, we don't want to be in this war. We don't want to be in Ukraine. We don't want to be in Czechoslovakia, which doesn't exist anymore. We don't want to be in these regional conflicts that are going to kill our daughters, because women are not viewed as disposable.
Right.
And that will force the parents back home to start paying attention, because now you got a 25 30 year old, some young couple, male and female, they got a young daughter, and they realize, oh shit, she can die just like our son can. They're going to start paying attention to why are we over there? Wait a minute, why are we giving them $60 billion,
Right.
$60 trillion, or however much it is?
But I'm thinking
And
that I don't have girls, and I'm thinking that about my boys, and it is a shame that society just like, oh, it's okay for my boys to be ended up being drafted and go overseas and possibly die, but my little girl, no, I don't want that to happen to her. It's like it's weird. And Blue, I think we talked about uh, the White Feather campaign and what that is. Do you want to tell our viewers what that is and what happened with that?
Yeah, so if I remember it correctly, the white feather was something you got that, well, men got when they ran away from war. The men that were old enough to go to war, healthy enough to go to war, if they didn't go and they hid, they got a white feather in the mail so that everybody knew that they were a coward.
Yeah. So the white feather was a symbol of cowardice, and this happened during World War One and a little bit in World War Two. And not only would you get it in the mail, but women, particularly women, would hand out these white feathers to men in public if they saw a man of age to go overseas or to fight in war. Um, they would be handed to them, and for a woman to shame a man and to call him a coward, it's a little bit harsher than another man calling another man a coward. A woman calling a man a coward is very demoralizing. And to be handed a white feather was basically a woman telling you, you're a coward and you need to go over there and die for me. And because the women were completely protected from it, they didn't have to fight. I mean, obviously, there was women and children who because of bombings and stuff like that, there were definitely casualties of women and children. But obviously, it was way more men because normally you don't try to attack civilian populations, and most of these populations are evacuated before these things happen. But um, it was a tragic thing in history for women and other people to try to shame men because they didn't want to die in a war. Um, but this goes to this disposability. They just figured you need to. You're a man, and that's your
mm-hmm.
job. And if you're not going to do your job, you're going to be a coward. We're not going to pursue. Obviously, women wouldn't pursue relationships with these kind of men. Didn't matter if you were a conscious objector or anything like that. So some men were rejected from the military because they had an illness or because they were disabled in some form, and they would still get white feathers. It's like the military won't even let me come. Join up and
Yeah.
go.
Hey, Blue, in Australia, you said you don't have a draft or selective service or anything like that over there, correct?
No, I said I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was curious how they're able to maintain their recruitment quotas, or if they did have another conflict come up, how would they address that?
Yeah. Well, I know. Well, they're
I'll have a look.
yeah. Well, they're. I know they're not getting along with China very well. Um,
Yeah, I saw what they did a week or two ago with their boats. That was interesting.
well, it's getting so petty. The Chinese asked for their pandas back from the zoo in
That
Australia.
was that was that was petty.
Yeah. Okay. Like how are you
Fun
gonna like?
fun fun fact. fun fact, you don't they don't put those pandas on loan. You actually have to rent those pandas. So I think it's like $600,000 a year
Oh, that's insane.
to rent a panda for your zoo.
Oh man.
Every pan every panda in the world belongs to China. Literally, they rent them out,
Yeah.
and any offspring in captivity is still property of China.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Australia.
so I don't know, you guys might be able to explain this better for me, but
Hmm.
this is what it says. Military conscription for peacetime service was abolished in 1972. However, in times of war, the Defence Act of 1903 allows the Governor General of Australia to authorise conscription for service in the Defence Force, provided it is approved by the Parliament of Australia within 90 days.
So you don't have a selective service blue, but you do have a draft that can be brought up.
Right, but I don't know if it was specific enough because it didn't say draft of men and women or just men. Bec-
She didn't specify that part.
right, right. She, yeah, that's what I'm. I mean, it sounds like to them it's an automated thing. Like everybody's in it. You know, you're not going to be drafted in peacetime, but if there's a war and Parliament, votes to go to war,
Approves it.
approves the war, then yeah, then we're going to start a draft. So it sounds like they also have, at least in peacetime, a completely voluntary force.
Mhm.
But we uh, we in America, I think we're in a lot of trouble with all these possible conflicts that are going around, or the actual conflicts that are going around. Um, I truly believe they're preparing for something. Like this to me is we need to prepare for this because it's coming down the pipeline, and so this
So
is how they're doing it.
there's some theories going around about Ukraine, and I tend to agree with one of them more than others. Um, I agree with a couple of different things going on in Ukraine, but the one thing I do know that I do believe is happening in Ukraine is we have, they say that we're giving, and honestly, I think there's a lot of money laundering going on too, but they say we're giving Ukraine $60 billion and we're giving them all these munitions. Well, part of that 60 billion, they're counting all the bullets, planes, missiles, Patriot systems, all that stuff is counted towards that 60 billion.
Right.
I don't know how much of it's cash, but we're giving them all of our stuff that's kind of old so that we can buy new stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't specify, I can't find anything that specifies if women are a part of it. But there is one article that I'm only reading the thumbnail here, but it's conscription in Australia in 1965. A group of concerned Australian women formed an anti-conscription organisation called Save Our Sons, which was established in Sydney, Australia.
So at least it sounded like. I mean, that sounds like it was only
Male,
men being a
male
part.
only.
If it's Save Our Sons, but that was back what in the '70s. It might have changed then in Australia,
Yeah.
65.
or no, sorry,
Yeah.
'65.
From the tone of that article, I would say that it's probably just men in Australia that get conscripted, but it doesn't specify, so it could be women too. But it sounds like it's just men.
Right, and it sounds like they have an automated system already. So, um, but
Oh, but
go ahead, Tex. What you were saying?
yes. So honestly, we're just shipping off all of our old munitions, and because that stuff does get old. So go use it up, Ukraine, so we can replenish our own supplies. So we're rebuilding our supplies with new stuff. It's basically cycling out and just cycling through the stores.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not hopeful for the future when it comes to these conflicts or anything like that. I see some
Well, as far
shady.
as I know, we're not done in Syria either. I think Syria is still going on, isn't it?
Well, there's. I
Syria,
mean,
Syria never ended.
well, I mean, well, we actually have troops in Gaza.
Hmm. We
We,
have bat. Go ahead.
it was a, what was it called? I mean, They say they technically don't have troops on the ground, but then they made like an artificial barge or something, or not a barge,
They made a pier,
pier, so they could deliver supplies. And I'm like, well,
right?
are there armed men on that pier?
Yeah.
Americans? Yes.
So
So if they
so
get
you put the
fired, so if they get fired upon from Gaza, they're going to return fire, right? That's
then
boots
we're
on
in
the
the
fucking
war.
ground. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. So they well, yes and no. They build the pier out. The ships pull up to the pier. We're tied up to the pier. I don't know. They have to let them off the ship. I'm sure they do to get to the stores off. But all it takes is one Palestinian, one I forget what they're called, not Houthis, but the other ones, Hamas.
Hamas, yeah.
All it's going to take is one errant missile or one accidental. Hey, let's fuck with the Americans and shoot their boats. By the way, guys, anybody out there, don't fuck with our boats. We take it personal. But all it's going to
Because
we take it
you were in the
personal.
you were in the Navy, right?
Oh, World War II, World War One, Spanish American Wars, the Civil War. Every war has started with somebody shooting at our fucking boats. Man, don't shoot our boats.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, all it's going to take is one errant attack that hits one of the boats that's tied up to the pier delivering peacekeeping goods or humanitarian goods, and now you've actually attacked an American ship. That's what's going to trigger America. That's what's going to get boots on the ground.
Right. And that's a war that liberals don't want. They don't want us fighting for Israel. The more left-leaning people in this country, they don't want us fighting for Israel. So I don't know how Biden's going to handle that if it ever happens before the election or anything. But we'll see. But yeah, I think we talked ad nauseum about this subject, and how long we're running. Ran about 35 minutes or so. So
Mhm.
sounds like a good episode right there. So I'll call us out, and thanks you guys for watching. Again, I'm Rocco, Baby Blue, Texas here. We are appreciative of your viewership. Please like, comment, and please subscribe. We're going to try to do an episode every week, uploaded maybe every Saturday. So please go ahead and, like I said, like, comment, and subscribe. And that way we can boost up in the algorithm. We're just starting out. And we hope you guys enjoyed the conversation we had here today. So we thank you.
And if you have any topics you want us to discuss, put it in the comments.
Yeah, it's another thing. If you want us to discuss topics that affect men, or please, yeah, definitely put that in the comments. Blue, you want to say goodbye?
Bye.
There's the smile.
All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks, everybody.